Joining BYU Sports Nation right now, David Nixon, former linebacker, spent 4 years in the NFL. David, the depth chart was just released for BYU Football. We just put that out on our Twitter account at BYU Sports Nation. I mentioned the surprises. Dallin Levitt on defense, the starting safety. No Harvey Jackson there. That's the biggest surprise to me. What's the biggest surprise that you've seen if you've had a chance to look at the depth chart, David?
Yeah, I have, and I agree. Dallin Levitt starting at Cat, that's what they have him listed at. I think that's obviously a big surprise, but Dallin's been a great contributor. Look back to last year; he obviously has some injuries here and there, but he was a guy that coaches could depend on. And sure enough, he now makes the transition over to Cat, and coaches obviously have some confidence in him to give him the nod here in Week 1.
Craig Bill stays at free safety. What do you think of that move instead of moving him to the Cat for Daniel Sorensen?
Well, and this is something about these depth charts. These guys are going to shift all around in the first game and throughout the season. These are kind of those preliminary depth charts they just put out there. And I'll be honest, there's not a ton of, there's not a ton of weight you can put on these for the fact that you will probably see Craig lined up at the Cat throughout the game and them switch positions. You see guys rotate in. But as it sits here, yeah, Craig's obviously starting at free. But I think you'll see him at Cat and kind of roving around.
Game week preparation has been underway for a few days now, David, and there's been much talk about BYU going again to the East Coast. They've not fared well in East Coast time zone road openers. Here we are at UConn on Friday. How much does travel play into perhaps this slowing BYU down offensively?
Well, I think with it being the first week of the season, I think that bodes well for BYU. I think if you're into the season, week 8, 9, guys are tired, guys' bodies are beat up, and then you're traveling on top of that, along with schoolwork that's on top of that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on later in the season that's a little tougher. With this being week 1, guys are excited. They've had this game circled on the calendar. They've had the countdown clock going for months.
And so have we.
and so has Sports Nation, BYU Sports Nation. So, but I think week 1, if you were to travel to UConn, I think this would be the best week for BYU to travel out that way.
Why will this not be like Virginia, David?
I think just experience. I think you once again, you're under the second year of Coach and you got Taysom that's now had a full year underneath his belt. And you've got guys returning on the defense, on the offense. I mean, you've just got a solid unit there. Coaches, I think, are more confident with what they've got. They're more confident in their game planning and their play calling. So I think all in all, everyone just knows kind of what to expect going into this first game because they've been around the system for a full year now. So I think everyone's just excited. I think fans were excited, obviously. But more than anything, once again, I think the players, they've been trained hard this training camp. You heard Coach Mendenhall say this is one of the better training camps he's been around. And I think that's going to show when they come out against UConn this Friday.
David Nixon, former BYU linebacker and NFL linebacker on BYU Sports Nation, one of our BYU TV football analysts. You can see David on Countdown to Kickoff this Friday at 6 Eastern, 4 Mountain on BYU TV. David, you've been through the whole nerves thing a number of times, whether it be a first game in the NFL or a first game of the season in college football. What are the players feeling inside the BYU locker room?
Oh, it's excitement. It's pure excitement. I mean, you got to remember this fall camp, training camp, whatever you want to call it, it's long. It's very long, and you're sick of going against each other. And finally, time has arrived where you get to start watching UConn film. You get to start prepping for somebody other than your own offense or defense. And so these guys are excited. They're getting to watch the guys they'll be going against. And once again, this is a game they've had circled on their calendar. So as a player, you're excited. And I'll be honest. These nights leading up to that UConn game, you don't get much rest. And you find yourself dreaming about football. You find yourself dreaming about the plays you're about to make come Friday. Because up to this point, this entire time, it's just been focused primarily on the opposing offense and defense. And now finally you can transition to a real opponent that you get to go out there and showcase what you've been practicing for the last 3-4 weeks.
How concerned should BYU be that the opposing starting quarterback doesn't even know that BYU's independent? Casey Cochran said they play in an incredible conference. I question his playmaking ability now if he doesn't even know what conference or lack thereof BYU plays in.
Yeah, the coaches need to talk to him and give him a heads up or something. Apparently, they haven't started game planning for BYU yet. But
that's what that tells me. Yeah.
But who knows? BYU kind of takes the approach. Look, it's about us. It's not about them. And maybe UConn's taking the same approach. But oftentimes that's what it is. You have to worry about yourself going out there and execute, and you can't worry about the other team because if you go out there and execute the way you should and the way that the play's drawn up, then it's tough for anybody to stop you. And maybe that's the mentality they've had, and that's why they haven't really focused on who BYU is at this point. But I can guarantee that come Friday, they'll have a good feel of who BYU is, especially after that first quarter.
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation. Just saw this tweet coming in from the phone conference that Bob Diaco is holding for media members. He said on the BYU opener, we're going to know where we stand right out of the blocks. Is there any chance that UConn takes BYU lightly?
No, I really don't think so. You look at BYU's reputation across the country. You look at what they've done, the bowl games they've been to, and the success Broncos had underneath his helm. I think UConn realizes this is a tough opponent, and you look at Taysom coming in with the accolades that he's received here, in the preseason. I think they realize they're going against a tough opponent in BYU, and I think they'll be definitely ready. But I think BYU in this matchup is just going to be too overpowering. I think both up front and throughout the secondary and offensively in the backfield, I think it's going to be too much for UConn. But I think that's what the beauty of college football is all about. Anybody can win on any given day, and it'll be exciting to see obviously how it plays out.
I'm taking Connecticut lightly. I think they're not a good football team. However, I still have questions about BYU on defense. I think they'll be good, but how good? Do you think the Virginia game and how that played out helps in this situation against Connecticut, where BYU respects the opener, no matter who it is, a little more?
I definitely think it does. The majority of the players back on this year's squad, a lot of the players on this year's squad were obviously on the team last year. You got some newcomers with Leslie and a few others transfers, but. I think that BYU has a bitter taste in their mouth from that Virginia game. I mean, that's a game they know they should have gone in there and won. They were the better team, and it proved throughout the season, obviously. And they let one get away. And I think coaches have probably harped on that, saying, look, we started slow against Virginia. We cannot let that happen. And once again, I think players will have a little bit of grudge and coming against UConn more focused and ready to take care of business because – once again, this first game it always sets the tone for the season, and if you start off with a loss here in this first game, it's sometimes hard to recover from because once again you put in so much time, prepared so much for this first game that if you go out there and perform poorly and don't fare as well, it's tough to recover from. You start to question yourself. Are we as good as we thought we were, and are these schemes that we're putting in place? Are they the right schemes, et cetera? So you start to question yourself. So it's imperative they come out this first game and really make a statement, and then ride that momentum hopefully throughout the rest of the season.
Okay, David, since you're an expert BYU TV sports analyst, let's play a game. True or false? In the phone conversation that head coach of UConn football, Bob Diaco, is having right now, he has mentioned BYU as grown men at least once.
100% true.
That is true. To quote him, the Huskies will be tested against a very good BYU team, and in many places they are lining up against grown men. Your reaction to that?
They're welcome to go on a mission.
It is the biggest joke in college football that coaches – it shows the insecurities of an opposing coach when they have to use the crutch of these grown men on BYU's team. You'll see the coaches that are well-respected around the country, they don't make excuses about facing BYU and the return missionary aspect. It is what it is for them. But you'll find these other coaches that are, I think, a little worried about the game, and they want to throw out some caution to their fans. Like, hey, we're facing older guys. It's kind of like an excuse. And it irks me. But, hey, grown men, whatever it may be, you still have to line up against them and play ball.
Yeah, the last 29 seasons, it's been crazy advantageous for BYU. Wait, they haven't won a national championship or anything. Stop. Did that ever come out in a game, David? Did any opponent ever mention age in trash talk ever?
No, not really. We were too busy beating up on them, so they were a little quiet. But no, it never really came up. But once again, I mean, it's just a joke. You look. I mean, me personally, I came home from my mission weighing 197 pounds. I left leaving at 230, And so the time
advantage was obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I gained a lot of muscle, as you could tell. So it's just a joke when these opposing players and coaches try to make this an excuse. And but obviously, once again, it is what it is. But hopefully, these older men can go out there and put a hurt on the Huskies.
So we've had some big question marks answered through the release of the depth chart. The inside linebackers will be Zach Stout and Manoa Pakula. Are you okay with how BYU will approach the season opener with a guy who's been dealing with a hamstring in Zach Stout and then Manoa Pakula, who only has really practiced for about a week?
No, I am. I think, once again, those guys have been around the program for a while now. Manoa had great reps last season, got some good time there. Zach Stout's been around the program for a while. Obviously not practicing throughout the entire camp kind of is a little, I don't know, it makes you a little cautious. But at the same time, those middle backers and those outside backers, they're rotating on a constant basis. So you're going to see the backups with Jeremiah Lutadoyer. I think he'll be getting some good reps, come Friday. And, of course, Harvey Lange, we'll see how he does. Austin Heder. I mean, Austin had a great camp from the scrimmages I saw. He was flying around making plays. So, once again, these depth charts, they come out and you see the starters. But BYU defensively rotates their players quite often to keep guys fresh. So I think you'll see a lot of backups coming in and making a contribution. But, yeah, the starters, you kind of see the experience. The guys have been around the program for a while and know what to expect from Bronco are the ones starting.
What's the strongest position group to you now that we have the depth chart?
Oh, that's a good question. I still love that secondary. I think from day one, the secondary's been strong. And you look at Jordan Johnson, Robertson Daniel, Dallin Levitt, Craig. But then you look at the backups. You got Sky Pove, who last year started quite a few games for BYU. Kai Nakua, who had a great camp. Michael Davis, who was
rising star maybe.
Yeah, played corner last year. Has kind of bounced around, and sure enough, has continued to develop lately. So. That secondary strong, and it's fun for me to say that because it's been so long that we've had probably the strongest on the defense be the secondary. So I think that's exciting for BYU fans to show you that hopefully there won't be any big plays, and then you keep everything in front of you, and then you let your linebackers and D-line go in and attack the quarterback and hopefully create some turnovers.
David, it's clear that even without Jamal Williams and Devon Blackman, you feel confident that BYU can go on the road and get a win.
17 plus!
Do you have a bold prediction for BYU and UConn on Friday night?
I think BYU comes hot out of the gates and is plus 28 points.
Wow! I thought that was nuts.
I think they put it on them. I think they kind of get over that sluggish start. And I think BYU puts their foot on the gas pedal and doesn't take it off.
Listen, you have a right to change this by Friday for the pregame if you feel so inclined.
Hey, I'm sticking with it. I'm confident in this BYU team.
More bold predictions coming at the end of Countdown to Kickoff this Friday. David, we appreciate the time. Great stuff as always. We'll see you this week.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.